sitting by. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock, so it's time for our October City of Beavercreek Planning Commission meeting. And I will officially call the meeting to order with a roll call. Please, ma'am.
Mr. Ayers.
Here.
Mr. Francis.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Meyer is absent. Mr. Self.
Here. And I need a motion to approve our absent member's absence.
Mr. Chair, I would motion to approve Mr. Meyer's absence.
And I have a second, and we'll do that by general consensus. Thank you very much. Okay, agenda. Staff, any additions, corrections? We're good to go with, where is it? With one public hearing tonight. So I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the agenda for reference topic PUD 23-2, SSP number 1.
Okay,
I second.
and we'll do that by consensus. Thank you very much. Minutes from last month. Any additions, corrections, changes? We're all good? Guess what I need?
Mr. Chair, I will motion to approve the September meeting minutes from the Planning Commission.
Second that.
Thank you, and I'll do that by general consensus. We good? Okay. With all that out of the way, we have one item tonight, and that's a public hearing. And the cliff notes for the way we do our public hearings is we ask for a presentation from the applicant. Then staff will give its report. Once we have heard that, we'll open the floor to questions, comments, for or against. We ask you to limit yourself to 3 minutes, so we won't be here too long. And once everyone has had a chance to speak, if there's any written input, we'll ask for that. At that point, we close the public hearing. We will discuss it and hopefully come to a conclusion. So if you wish to speak, don't be shy. I'll let you know when it's time to do that. So without further ado, if you would be so good as to read the beginning.
This is case number PUD 23-2, specific site plan number 1, on an application filed by Ober Land Developers Limited, care of Bridalwood Farms, LLC, 3445 Newmark Drive, Miamisburg, Ohio, 45342. The applicant requests approval of a specific site plan to allow development of 117 single-family residential homes on 50.01 acres of land. The property is located on the west side of North Alpha Bellbrook Road, approximately 1,200 feet north of the intersection of North Alpha Bellbrook Road and Indian Ripple Road, further described as Book 6, page 19, parcel 1 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. I presume we have someone here from the developer who is ready to make his presentation.
Good evening. My name is George Ober, Jr. with Ober Land Developers. And so this is the subject site is previously stated, just about 1,200 foot on the north of Indian Ripple Road and west of Alpha Bellbrook Road. Just a little bit about ourselves. Actually, this is an old slide that I borrowed for this presentation, but we just celebrated our 75th anniversary, so been in business in the Dayton area quite a while. We developed many residential and commercial developments throughout the Miami Valley, and actually some in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. We purchased the subject farm back in March of 23, and late last year in the fall we rezoned from A1 to RPUD. Early this spring we submitted for the site-specific plan, and it was recommended that we obtain a traffic study. So we worked with the school district and with also the city and Greene County, and the traffic study went through several iterations and it was finally approved back in late August. So we submitted, or resubmitted, and asked to be put back on the agenda on September the 17th. Few conditions. We did have a good meeting with staff last week and talked about several issues and came to a consensus on most of them. The site, as I mentioned when it was rezoned, was approved for 2.5 dwelling units per acre. This particular plan proposes 117 lots, or 2.34 units per acre, which is under the 2.5 cap. Over 11 acres of open space is proposed, and the setback requirements, 30-foot front yards, 35-foot rear yards, and minimum of a 5-foot side yard, but with no residence being closer to the other than 15 feet. Lots abutting the existing R1A lots would have a minimum of a 50-foot rear yard. Our proposal is to phase the development over 5 total sections. Section 1 would be 27 lots, and we hope to break ground for that in the spring of 25. We estimate that home construction would commence around the fall of 25. As far as the conditions of approval, I mentioned there were a couple of issues that we didn't quite see eye to eye on with the staff. The first one being the landscaping. Not a big deal, I don't think, and I had subsequent discussions with Randy about it. I think originally it was proposed that we, or as a condition, and it's probably in your packet, that we would put 1 tree in the front yard and 1 in the rear yard, and they would be at least 2.5-inch calipers. We would prefer to put both trees in the front yard, between the front setback and the front yard, instead of in the rear yard. A lot of homeowners do their own custom landscape. We provide a minimum landscape package for the front, which includes a number of shrubs and trees and mulch beds. And this would just be a little more consistent with what is our typical landscape package. And no matter where we put it in the rear yard, it's almost always in the wrong place because somebody wants to do something with their patio or deck or something later on. We are, of course, adjacent to a pretty large development in Terra Estates to the north, and that is and was developed under an R1A zoning. One of the things I would point out in the R1A zoning that this allows a house size of a minimum of 1,200 square foot. So when we first started this development and acquired the site, we didn't really know that we were going to acquire the site on the east side of Alpha Beavercreek Road. So subsequently to acquiring the site, we did acquire the site to the east, and we actually sought that out for a couple of reasons, but the primary one was we needed to bring sanitary sewer to the site, and a significant portion of this will drain into or to the east to that development. That's a totally different development. It happens to be in the township, and it has a significant amount of topography to it as compared to this site. And it used to be, I believe, a walnut farm because it's covered, the whole site is full of walnut trees. So one of the things after we acquired the second site, which used to be owned by the Ohio U Foundation, is we started looking at the diversification of product on the 2 sites. It made sense that we would offer a variety of products between the 2 sites because we like to develop them simultaneously. So what we had leaned towards on the subject site that we're discussing tonight is we offer we build today and have been building since the 70s different iterations of an empty nester product. So the empty nester product varies in size. The smallest home offered in that product line is 1,262 square foot, and the largest one that we're offering today anyway is about 2,200 square foot with options. So one of the most popular options on that patio home product is about 150 square foot Florida room that we add on the back of it. They all come with 2-car garages. They're all single level. Some offer an optional loft in the attic, and we finish part of the attic space. But in that offering, typically what we do, and in this case it would be, we'd like to have the option of doing it for the entire 117 lots, assuming that it goes as well as it's going in a couple of the other developments that we're doing now in the Miami Valley. One of the things that it requires, though, is that market likes to have the landscaping taken care of. So typically in those communities, we provide all the landscaping services, grass cutting, fertilization, snow removal, things of that nature. So when you do that, you almost can't mix the empty nester product with the conventional single-family product, because you need to determine ahead of time which lots are going to be which, and which lots get the landscape care and which don't. So the first section of Bridalwood will be that patio home product, but we'd like to have the ability to expand that. That's why we are asking for some consideration on this condition to allow that product line to continue throughout the development. It will be very compatible with the neighborhood to the north. In Terra Estates, for an example, we had 22 sales recorded in the last 12 months, and they ranged in price from $312,000, had one at $875,000, but the average is $478,500. Assuming the patio home product is successful throughout the development, as it is in our other communities, as I said, we'd like to do that, or have the ability to do that beyond just the first section. The minimum square foot is important because it allows us to offer a more attractive entry-level price. Just briefly, the last community we started was in the Cornerstone development in Centerville, and we started the product at about a 1,700 square foot range, and then COVID hit. At the time, 1,700 square foot allowed us to offer a $299,000 product at 1,700 square foot. We've seen rampant construction and development inflation since COVID, so we had to retool that development to hit that price point. That's one of the reasons why we're proposing to offer this here, is because, but what I wanted to point out is that doesn't mean that all the homes in the development are going to be 1,262 square feet. For an example, in Cornerstone, in the last year, there were 9 units sold. The average sale price in that development, even though $299,000 is achievable, the average was $414,000. We achieved a price range in there that went from a minimum of $357,000 to $487,000. The 1,263 square foot plan was not purchased, so it was not included in that product mix. Similar development in the Washington Township area, where similar number of homes, 7 homes were sold, and they ranged in price from, $407,000 to $570,000, with an average of $507,000. So again, the minimum in that development, there was a 1,453 square foot home offered, and that was never purchased. So anyway, we are requesting that Condition 20 either be stricken or that it be revised to allow for a minimum footprint or square footage of 1,200 square foot. Appreciate staff's recommendation for approval, and I'll do my best to answer any questions.
I'm sure we'll have some. Thank you. Staff.
Oh, you're up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Again, the case you have before you is PUD 23-2. It's the first specific site plan or specific site plan number 1 with this PUD. As the applicant stated, they're looking for approval for 117 single-family home site on about 50 acres. Just a brief overview of the PUD process. There's 2 phases. This one went through the first phase back mid last year with the rezoning, and now the second phase is a specific site plan phase where we talk about the site plan, we talk about architecturals, we talk about street lighting if that's appropriate, and landscaping and buffers and things like that. And so we're here this evening as the first step of phase 2 of the specific site plan stage. I think I'm going to get, there we go. As the applicant stated, the project's located in southeast Beavercreek. It's about 1,200 feet north of where Indian Ripple Road and Alpha Bellbrook Road intersect. It's, again, an older horse farm, has about 870 feet of frontage on Alpha Bellbrook Road, and sits back quite a way, about over 2,000 feet back from the road. So it's I don't want to say narrow because it's 800 feet wide, but it's definitely longer than it is wider on frontage-wise. Again, the property was rezoned late last year to PUD 23-2 and has a set of conditions within that ordinance that approved the rezoning. All the conditions that were included in that ordinance have been met with this proposed application. To the south is A1, where you see highlighted in green, that's A1 agricultural. To the east is outside of the city and the township. And then to the north is R1A, single-family residential, developed in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s. Seen here is the proposed site plan. The main access point would be off of Alpha Bellbrook Road, which is actually a county township road. So as the applicant stated, there was a traffic study, a drawn-out traffic study that was reviewed and approved by the county engineer. There was some improvements that is recommended to be included on Alpha Bellbrook, but that's really the county's road, so it's hard for us to condition it other than we added a condition that any concerns of the county engineer be addressed before we do a record plan for recording. There's also 2 access points into the existing neighborhood to the north. Those are 2 stub streets at this, currently stub streets, so the proposed roads would connect to the end of those stub streets. And then on the far southwest corner, there's a future stub street so that we can continue, should the area to the south develop, we want to continue the interconnectivity between neighborhoods, just like we want to connect this to the existing neighborhood. Future neighborhoods, we'd want to connect to this proposed neighborhood as well. This is just kind of a close-up view of one of the intersections. You can see that they have sidewalks along all frontage, interior lots, and then a tree lawn. The right-of-way at this location is 50 feet, but if you go towards the front of the first, just to the east of that first intersection is 60-foot right-of-way, so you can have wider roadway pavement, because that's the entryway, and that's where everyone who goes to that neighborhood will go through that point, whereas as you taper off towards the east, there'll be less and less traffic. So this is the site plan. I did an overlay with the aerial just to give you an idea of how it relates to the existing neighborhood to the north and to the residential properties to the south. Again, the applicant stated the density, and the way we calculate density is just basic, the total acreage of the project and the total number of units. So the 117 units on 50 acres is 2.34. I know in the staff report it says about 1.6, but that was a number that was on the plans, but the real density is 2.4 dwelling units an acre, which is below the prescribed 2.5 in the ordinance, and well below the way this area is designated on the land use plan is low density residential, which is defined up to 3 dwelling units an acre. So they meet the ordinance and they meet the land use plan with this proposal. As the applicant stated, they're proposing to do this in phases, and so you see the first phase out to the east and then step it off to the west as the phases continue. They did include a lot of, or several different options for architectural elevations in the packet. You can see that, the houses will be made out of stone and brick and hardy plank. There's a condition that those features be continued on all four sides, so you don't have just front-facing upgraded features, and then you go to the back and you'd have the vinyl or the aluminum siding. So the proposed condition says no vinyl or aluminum except as trim or fascia or minor parts like that. There is a condition in there that single-story be limited to 1,600 square feet and two-story be limited to 2,550 square feet. That's the minimum. We base that on just looking at about a mile out at what the average home size was. And this was based off of the applicant's initial elevations they provided. Now, they had brought up, the applicant brought up to us yesterday that they were interested in doing a patio home option. And staff doesn't see a problem with that. It's up to Planning Commission whether or not you would like to do that. If that's something you're interested in, I have a recommended condition that I can bring forward if you want to do it kind of as a, not the entire neighborhood, as a, as the smaller empty nester homes, but more of a kind of a mix between the traditional and the empty nesters. There's positives and negatives to all that. You get, the more empty nester homes you get, the less impact you'd have on the schools, and typically there's less traffic impact with 55 and up older households compared to the traditional household. But you would get the home size. If you mix that in, that would offer a good mixed neighborhood where you wouldn't stand out as much. The applicant did ask about condition number 7, and I have no problem with just striking a few words out of condition 7. So the second tree shall be planted outside of any of the grading limit instead of requiring it to be to the rear of the house. And as part of their package, they have multiple different caliper trees, so we don't want to require 2 large trees and then some other small trees. So kind of leave it up to the applicant whether or not they put a 2.5 or 1.5 or whatever caliper they'd like to put. But that's our recommended change for condition number 7 in the conditions of your resolution. Just a few other select conditions. One is again, the homes be constructed of brick or stone or cement board siding on all 4 sides. The same layout, so we don't want to see 2 houses next to each other that are the same model or the same color, just to give it some variety in the neighborhood. Those are the again, those are the minimum square footage that we discussed. And Planning Commission, it's up to you whether or not you go with the 1,200 square foot. I'll leave that up to you guys. They didn't include any final landscaping plan in terms of the entryway, so we just stated that the entry feature, we've done this, we did it for Sky Crossings, we did it for Ellis Garden and Amberwood, that they can have up to an 8-foot sign, just make sure it's not in the right of way and can't block traffic, but the final design approved when they come for that zoning permit. The ponds that are out on site, they're going to be wet ponds, and so in order to keep those in good condition, looking good, we want to see stone being 2 feet above the water line and 2 feet below the water line. That cuts down on the cattails and the area right around the water line. It's hard to mow. And that also fountains be included in the ponds to keep the water circulating and cut down on the stagnant water and moss and mosquitoes and things like that. Another key condition, we do this with all residential neighborhoods, new ones that abut existing, is that construction traffic, they need to build their own entrance off of Alpha Bellbrook Road and not having subcontractors and contractors and earth moving and all that go through the existing neighborhood and disrupt the tranquility of their neighborhood. So no construction traffic through the existing neighborhood. And then there is an Exhibit A, and this is what it looks like in your packet. Sorry, it's hard to read at this scale, but that be a green space easement, and that's defined as, all, the landscaping can be removed as long as it's less than 4 inches in diameter, so the bigger trees have to remain, but we don't want to create a situation where the scrub and the poison ivy and stuff like that can't be removed, and that's what you would get with the conservation easement. When we went through the rezoning on the concept plan, it was labeled conservation easement, but we didn't want to see that, so we specifically had them in the conditions of the ordinance, rename it from green space, or from conservation to green space easement. It's more in line with a residential neighborhood rather than what you would find out in more non-residential areas. Again, just an overall blanket statement. The city's role in development, we hear all the time that we need to stop development, that it's impacting on schools and traffic, and we can't consider school impact as one of the factors on reviewing or approving or recommending approval of single-family residential neighborhoods. And traffic, if you want to stop a project because of traffic, you have to produce a study that says whatever traffic they're going to produce can't be, there's no solution to fix the traffic, and they've already done the traffic study, and the county engineer has approved it with their improvements. The only way we could actually stop development is if we start buying all the land, and we'd need to use taxpayers' dollars for that. There are 29 conditions in your resolution. Staff recommends approval. Again, if you guys are considering the smaller footprint size, I do have a proposed condition. This is condition number 20. It kind of mixes the neighborhood, where I'm saying that the smaller homes, or the existing 1,600 and 2,550 square foot apply on the homes that abut the existing neighborhood. And then the other lots can have down to the 1,250 square foot, but we don't want to see one smaller house next to another smaller house. So if you put a 1,260 square foot house, the one next on either side of it has to be at least 1,600 square foot, and that'll mix the neighborhood up with of sizes. So that's the language that if Planning Commission so wishes to amend those size conditions, that's how we would recommend you moving forward. But again, staff does recommend approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions following the public hearing.
Once again, I'm sure we'll have some questions. Thanks for the very comprehensive report. We got a lot to discuss, gentlemen. But first, it's time for any input, or I won't say any, that scares people off. If there is time for input from folks here, step right on up. Don't be shy. State your name and have at it. And try to limit to 3 minutes, if you would, please, ma'am.
If I read fast, you may miss it.
There you
It
go.
should be 3 minutes, but
Okay.
I can read fast.
Okay.
My name is Denise Hurley. I live at 3021 Southfield Drive. I back up to Section 4 to one of the cul-de-sac lots, actually the middle one. Okay. I still have many concerns about the proposed Bridlewood subdivision. First, the 25-foot green space easement was originally labeled conservation land easement, but because Beavercreek did not have a definition for this, it was supposed to be governed by the HOA. It is now being called a green space easement. That definition states that no sidewalks, no structures, only landscaping, grass, and trees can be in the space. This space is 25 feet wide, with 16 feet being an old, worn-out dirt horse path, Boston accent. That leaves just 9 feet of honeysuckle bushes, small trees less than 4-inch in caliper test, and some larger trees. That does not make for a true 25-foot buffer. Second, the green space easement will be located on the future homeowner's lot. How will that future homeowner be restricted to leaving the 25-foot green space easement untouched? And what are the consequences if that future homeowner uses the green space for personal structures such as a shed, pool, etc.? Again, the current green space is not HOA-owned, and the screening buffering will be very sparse. 3, due to the confusion over the original conservation land easement, I would like to see a 50-foot open space buffer be required between the developments with nothing disturbed in that area, hence a no-cut area. and I would be open to an earthen berm mound with landscaping on top, such as mature pine trees. Fourth, the bottom line is that currently with this site plan, the Tara neighbors are not given a screening buffer zone because the future homeowner can take it all out. Fifth, the green space definition states a fence may be placed in that area. Who decides the type of fence? And once again, said fence will be able to go right up to the back of my property line. Once there, how will you know if those owners are removing the 9-foot in question of greenery and trees? 6, in order to have a true 50-foot green space buffer between the subdivisions, lots 43, 58, 59, 73, 74, and 90 can be eliminated. 7, Walnut Ridge subdivision is being built by Ober just across from Bridal Woods. They have 42 acres and 84 houses. Do the math, that's two houses per acre. Where Bridal Woods will have 50 acres and should have 100 houses, but instead will have 117. All but 2 at Walnut Ridge will have 70-foot wide lots, where we'll have 60-foot wide lots here, and the houses will be like, the houses across from the Russ Research Development Center. It looks like a project. They're so tight together. I firmly believe that Bridal Woods should do the same, as 60-foot wide lots are way too close to each other. 8th, I also share the concerns that my husband sent to you via email. Thank you for your time.
Next.
There we go. My first time doing all this stuff, so not
We
sure.
don't bite. Don't worry about it.
Not sure how to convey my concerns or.
Well, first of all, if you would convey your name and your address,
Okay.
please.
My name is Mike Rickey. I'm at 119 North Alpha Bellbrook Road, so I am just south of this Bridalwood Farms here. So, so my concerns are the easements between my property and the development there. So, so north of my property and south of the development, we don't see an easement at all. So I would like to see this 50-foot easement that she proposed between my property and their property and their development, just to give us some privacy that we already have out there, because we have all the trees and stuff like that. So also for the
Excuse me, could you
yeah.
show us exactly?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Is it this is it that right there?
Yeah, so this is our house right here.
Okay,
This is our farm.
okay, that's fine. That just want to make sure we knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, existing tree line here, it's hard to tell with the line.
Yeah, we have an existing tree line. It's about 4 foot wide. Back here, it's about 20 feet wide. I'm sorry, not here, but back here. And up here.
If you would, you need to be at the
Okay.
podium. The folks who are watching this on TV can't hear you,
Oh, okay.
so
Sorry about that.
no problem.
So I just want to know what Ober plans to do for that easement, between the two properties and as well as the fence line. We have an existing fence line. Of course, it was two horse farms back to back, so there's an existing fence line separating the two properties too. If all that shrubbery is going to be removed, is the fence line going to be damaged, or I would like them to replace it if they're going to damage it, obviously. So, let's see, what else? Runoff. So, water runoff from the farm, from Ober's development into our property is a big concern. I'm not sure what the topography and, the slope of the land and stuff like that is. But I would like to see, some kind of a berm to keep that separated from my property. So all of the chemicals from the lawn care and stuff like that is not running into my farm. I'm a beekeeper, so I have several hives, and I would like to keep that way. So my concern is the health of my bees. And then road widening, I'm sure when the property across the street gets developed, the road will be widened, so I'm concerned about eminent domain and losing my land due to, excuse me, eminent domain. So that's probably a discussion for the future. But yeah, that's about all I have. So I thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, my name is Mike Stark. I live at 2862 Southfield, which is just adjacent to the farm there. Just a couple quick questions. I know this may be too soon to talk about, but can you guys detail what the improvements to the traffic access on North Alpha Bellbrook would be? Are we going to widen that to three areas? Plus, I guess the other question really to Ober is, what I heard you say, I thought, was that you were going to do both this Bridlewood and then also the other one on the east side. Is that true at the same time? I'm sorry. I was trying to make contact there. The question was, I wondered if if Ober was going to do both developments at the same time. Okay, yeah, and I guess also concern is that eventually, hopefully, the new high school will be put down there. So that's going to be a significant amount of traffic, right? We've been here for 30 years. We love Beavercreek, of course, and I know you guys are going to do a great job for this. So no concern, but I guess details would be great if we could do that. And then also, what's the time frame for both things? As far as both developments.
We'll ask.
We'll ask. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next. Don't be shy. Don't be. I told you we don't bite.
That's nice. I'm Sharon Roach. I live at 3009 Southfield Drive. I live behind what would be section number 4, one of the cul-de-sacs that's going in. My concerns are pretty much the traffic pattern. You only have one exit out onto a major road from that development, and the other 2 exits will be going onto Southfield Drive. There are no sidewalks. There's a large amount of pedestrian traffic. There are a large number of children on that street. And I can tell you right now, most people wanting to go west turn left onto Southfield, or living on Southfield now, turn left to head through the development instead of turning right and going on to Alpha Bellbrook and then doing all the crazy U-turns on 35 trying to get west again. So I'm looking at probably...
Those aren't our fault.
I realize that, but I'm looking at probably sections 3, let's see, 2, the western sections, I think it's 2, 3, and 4, will probably be emptying out onto my street. And if there's going to be more development across the street and possibly another school put on there, that's going to be a lot more North Alpha Bellbrook traffic, which is going to be directing more traffic through the easily traversed neighborhood. That worries me because, like I said, there's a lot of children. There's a lot of people walking their dogs on my street. That's what I love about my street, that it's very quiet, it's very safe, and we don't have a lot of people zooming through the neighborhood now. So I'm thinking, you're going to have to do a lot more with more traffic stops, something to help. Let's see, and could there possibly be a second exit onto North Alpha Bellbrook Drive from that development? Only having one exit out into a major road seems a little bit short-sighted. The green space behind my house, I'm kind of confused with what a green space or easement is versus a conservation easement. Like they basically said, can somebody put a swimming pool like just 5 feet on the other side of the fence? Instead of being an area that's for wildlife in a wild setting, it's basically saying that the owner of the property behind me can pretty much do mostly whatever they want with that property. And develop, make it lawn, landscape, whatever they want to do, instead of being more of a wild setting, as it is right now. Let's see. And the other problem is water runoff from the farm. Right now, I have a ditch that goes through my backyard that which we haven't had much rain this summer, but when we get a significant rain, I have a lot of water that runs down off of that horse trail into my yard and down into the water drain from the ditch. And I'm worried that more houses there will be, I'm not backed up against one of your ponds, I'm backed up against 2 cul-de-sacs. And I'm worried that that water drainage will affect my property. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. See, it didn't hurt at all. Others? Don't be shy. Did we have written input?
We did have written input. There were 2 emails that did come in. Planning Commission members received copies of both.
Okay. Last chance if anyone who has not spoken wants to speak. Okay, last chance. I'll close the public hearing, and I will start with Mr. Jones on my right. He's been writing furiously, so I know he's got some questions. If you wish.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I only have, well, I guess I have 2 questions for you. One of the public speakers talked about like people potentially speeding through here. Is there a plan for like speed bumps on any of the roads in this new development? Is that in your purview?
Well, I mean, I think I could speak for the city engineer who's here if he wants to overrule what I'm saying, but there's no plan for speed bumps. We tend to try to avoid them in public roads because they usually don't last the first snow season. The blades of the snow trucks just rip them right off.
Yeah.
And eventually, the neighbors don't want them anyway. So there are no plans for speed bumps in this neighborhood. I mean, obviously, we can do them if that's the planning commission wishes and city council wishes, but there's no plans at this time.
Okay. My second question was, I'm assuming this is a power line that's running.
That's actually
Gas line?
it's a gas line that goes, I think, from Louisiana all the way up to through somewhere in Texas through Louisiana up to Maine.
Okay, so it's buried. So
very buried.
yep. Okay.
And there's a 30-foot wide easement. You can't do anything on it.
Okay. That's all the questions that I had.
All right, you can get a second helping later. Next.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've got a few questions.
Sure.
So you just stated that the city disfavors speed bumps. But I know for a fact that in the neighborhood, the new neighborhood that connects to Mr. Self's old neighborhood, there's a speed table where where the old stub out connects to the new neighborhood.
Right. That was a requirement that was added. It's not particularly, it's not something that we favor, but again, if that's something planning commission, city council wants, we'll have them put it in.
So if we have concerns over additional traffic or potentially speeding and interfering with dogs and kids, is that something that we could do?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the rationale when you were calculating the minimum square footage for the homes?
Mm-hmm.
What was the rationale for taking the average of the 1 mile vicinity of the development instead of the quarter mile or half mile?
They were all very, quite similar, actually. Let me get to that screen. But really, I was just trying to get an idea of, if I can get to it. There's no manual that says 1 mile is the area you should do. It's just, I think
I know it's so far back. Sorry, Randy.
I lost it. I'll get to it. There.
There you go.
Just trying to, the area in, I guess the second lightest blue is the 1 mile radius. I was just trying to think of the area that's on this side of North Fairfield, this side of 35, and in the general area, and the Terra area. I mean, that's more,
So
diverse in terms of, you've got newer and older homes in that area rather than just the older homes that
So
are.
my thought is when you're looking at the lots and trying to determine lot sizes, when you're looking at existing developments and existing lot sizes, you try to match. We did it with Sky Crossing to Terra Falls, right? We've done it on every development. So that is you're considering the immediate area. How come when you're looking at the square footage, you're not considering the immediate area?
It's just to get a wider range of, I guess, a bigger data set. I mean, if you only look at the homes just next to it, you might get all the same size or all really close to the same size. And the intent isn't to match it completely. It's just to get it in the vicinity and then kind of get it in context with the vicinity, not just the immediate neighborhood. So we don't necessarily want to match exactly the adjacent neighborhood. We just want to get it in the ballpark.
Okay. Mr. Roach had raised this concern, and I've got an additional concern about only having a single entrance onto a main road. That seems, I know in Sky Crossing there's two entrances onto main roads, and we'd like to do that when possible. Is there, go with 117 new homes, that's a lot of trips to a single main point. Is there any possibility for getting a second?
That was the intent of, you always want to have multiple entrances from main roads. And that was the intent of why we wanted to ensure that we connect to the neighborhood to the north, because they have an access out to Alpha Bellbrook Road. So there is a multiple access. It just, one of them is existing and one will be new. So that was why, that's another case in point why we connect to existing neighborhoods. It does offer that multiple access points.
Okay. There are a few questions about green space versus conservation easements. Can you just talk about that briefly, the difference?
Sure. Yeah, a conservation easement is kind of our highest level of do not touch zone. So it stays as it is, and you're not supposed to change anything in it. It just becomes natural state. So you get a lot of, I mean, you can get poison ivy, you can get honeysuckle, you can get rodents. I mean, it just is what it is. We would discourage those, and especially between two residential neighborhoods. If you were on just the perimeter of one, it was backed up to a woods, another big, large area, then yeah, I could see that. But to put one in between two residential neighborhoods, you're encouraging kind of almost a rodent highway between the two. And so a conservation easement, you just don't touch anything, you just let it go. The green space easement allows you to clear out underbrush, weeds, everything else, but you have to leave trees that are more than 4 inches in caliper or larger, so that there is some natural mature landscaping between the neighborhoods. It does allow for you to put sheds and fences as long as you don't have to cut down one of those 4-inch or larger trees to achieve that.
Okay. And it looks like in this development to the north side of the development, that is a green space easement, correct?
Correct.
And is there it's so hard to see, it's written so small. Is there a no-cut demarcation?
Really, a green space easement and a no grade limit is pretty much one and the same.
Okay.
We're telling the developer, when you establish that, you tell the developer you can't grade past this limit. And then when it converts over to the homeowner, they can clear out whatever they want as long as it's not the 4-inch tree or more. If they want to leave it all, they can leave it all. I mean, and that's why we deferred it over to the homeowners association, and we have a requirement that before they create the neighborhoods that we review the HOA documents, and we'll ensure that they would maintain that green space easement just like an HOA maintains other things in a neighborhood. If their particular homeowner association doesn't want to have fencing, then they don't have fencing. Or if they want to have vinyl only fencing, just like any HOA can establish their own standards, we want to ensure that one of those standards is that green space easement be maintained.
And it looks like it's the 50-foot buffer. Is that the normal?
Typically, we don't, nothing in the zoning code requires buffers between one single-family neighborhood and another.
But when we do require buffer zones, is 50-foot pretty typical?
No, 25 is more, I mean, we did 25 at Ellis Garden, we did 25 at Sky Crossings.
Okay. And the developer talked about this briefly, and I noticed that there's no landscape plan included in the SSP. Is that something that we could require if we wanted to, in that buffer zone, require some sort of screening trees or?
The challenge with that is it's private property. Rather than the HOA being able to control it, it's up to the homeowner, and then you're telling each homeowner that they have to let this tree grow, and they can get rid of the scrub, but it's just a lot harder. I mean, we can do that.
But it's in, right? I mean, it would be in when the home is sold, and then if the homeowner wants to clear cut it and redesign the landscaping themselves, they could.
Yeah, I mean, that's an option for planning commission. It's just, I've found that it's better if you want to leave, once you start wanting to plant stuff in those things, you have to clear a lot of stuff around it to get to it. So then you're kind of defeating the purpose of the screen, even if it's temporary. It really reverts back to the future homeowner, what they want, rather than the developer coming in and clearing out area to put in new landscaping. It just keeps the existing landscaping.
And I'm trying to put myself in a place if somebody would buy this, because I wouldn't buy a home on a small lot. But I would imagine that they would want some sort of screen. I mean, I would at least. So I'd want some sort of screening or privacy from the people who live 15 feet beside me or 50 feet behind me, whichever way it is, right?
Sure. And to leave the existing is the first best option, and then if they want to clear out the scrub, then they can. But I think that to leave even the mature scrub gives them that initial, and then they can determine.
Well, I think the concern is the existing's not much, right? Because I think it's a dirt road.
And, I mean, I guess
space.
I would defer that to the applicant if to answer more on that specific piece of ground.
Okay.
We've just wanted to leave that as it is, and that was our intent, is just leave it as it is and let the future homeowner take care of what they want to do on it, other than cut down trees more than 4 inches.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for staff.
Okay.
Some questions for the applicant. So, you'd stated that you do not like condition 20, in that you're hoping to have some language that would provide for the ability to put 117 patio home designs, which could essentially be the entire on all 4 phases, right?
Right.
If that is something that is done where we're looking at a smaller footprint, smaller square footage, would you come back and request an amendment to the specific site plan to add more homes, to add more lots?
We have no intention to do that. The smallest patio home and the largest patio home that we build fits on 61, 62-foot lot. I mean, it actually fits on a 60-foot lot. We make it a little bit bigger than that because if an air conditioner hangs off the side of it or we don't encroach on any of the lots, but no, to answer your question, that's the size that will fit our entire patio home line. Okay. And I know we have competitors, for an example, that build patio homes on 50-foot lots. Maybe not in Beavercreek.
Hope not.
Yeah.
No. So you're saying that you said the smallest patio home fits on a 60-foot lot, or the largest?
The largest and the smallest.
Okay.
They both.
And obviously, non-patio homes fit on a 60-foot lot, right? Because that's what you're planning to put non-patio homes up to, what was it, 2,500 square
Well,
foot or something?
we could do that. I mean, we have that flexibility
Okay.
with that lot layout.
And what did you say was the size range of the patio homes? 1,200 to what?
1,260 square foot to about 2,100 square foot. Might be 21 or 2,200 square foot.
Okay. You had made I think it was meant to be an offhand comment, but you'd said that you used to offer a 1,700 square foot house that sold for $299. What does that sell for now?
Over 400.
Okay.
In fact, I think I had a slide in there that I can tell you that yes, sir. I have two different developments that I compared it to. One in Centerville that offers 1,263 square foot to 1,773 square foot. And now that, by the way, is not counting the most popular option that probably 9 out of 10 of these buyers put a Florida room on it. So that's another 150 foot. But similar product in Washington Township offers a 1,453 to 2,178 square foot home. So the 2,178, not including the Florida room, is the largest basic footprint that is offered there.
You'd mentioned that Ober purchased the lot across the street in Beavercreek Township.
Yes, sir.
How many acres do you have across the street?
It's over 40 acres, but what is currently going through the zoning process in the township, I'm going to say is 37 or 8 acres.
And how many homes do you plan to put on that 37 or 38 acres?
About 100, I believe. 100.
Okay. I noticed that that there's a stub street to the southwest of your specific site plan. Does Ober have any plans to purchase and develop land to the south?
We do not.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Got a couple questions. Mr. Ober,
Yes.
why not have a 50-foot landscape buffer?
You say why?
Why not?
It's been our experience that typically, most of the time, we don't provide a buffer from one residential neighborhood to another residential neighborhood. In such cases as we do, typically, it's not more than 25 feet. Occasionally, you might see a 50-foot buffer when you're buffering to commercial. And, you know, it's not in the city's zoning requirements.
Would you be willing to put in a 50-foot buffer?
No, sir.
It is on. I'll try to speak closer to the mic. So you wouldn't be willing to put in a 50-foot buffer?
I think that's excessive. You know, we keep in mind, one of the things that the city does require that we have to do is we're matching lot widths where we butt up against the adjoining neighborhoods. So it's like why wouldn't the neighbor in Terra Estates, for an example, have to put a buffer between his yard and his neighbor's backyard. I mean, it's the same kind of, I guess, principle or concept.
Okay. My last question is, what about the runoff concerns?
Well, the city engineer, and it's in the Ohio Revised Code, won't allow us to dump more water or at a faster volume on the adjoining property owner. So that's why we strategically place stormwater detention basins, and they're typically oversized slightly to make sure that there's adequate runoff prevention. These plans are also approved by EPA and the city engineer.
I'm just trying to make you a good neighbor. That's all. That's all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll probably have something for you, but I want to talk to staff first. It's been my experience over some few years that when a vacant parcel is developed, it usually helps the runoff to adjacent parcels rather than makes it worse. I can think of a half a dozen plats where there have been some serious problems with existing homes where water was running off the vacant property, and when that vacant property was developed, it basically stopped the runoff.
Yeah,
So,
it costs a lot to build these ponds, and it would cost a lot more if they didn't build them big enough the
Right.
first time. So typically, we see them oversized on the first go-around.
and that also means in all directions. So the gentleman that has the farm to the south, it should help your situation rather than make it worse. If it makes it worse, call the engineer.
Yeah,
because it shouldn't.
By Beavercreek ordinances, it can't make it any worse. And like you said, it generally improves. the
Okay.
situation.
Traffic. I was squinting at the drawing here, but it appears that there will be a left turn lane at the point where Breeder's Way runs into Alpha Bellbrook.
Yeah, reading the traffic study, they've recommended a right-hand turn in southbound and a left-hand turn
Okay.
northbound, and then another right-hand turn to the project to the other side of the street as well.
Okay. And
So there'll be turn lanes in.
and they'll put a street light at that intersection.
Not a traffic signal.
No, a street light.
I'd have to
Illumination.
defer to Jeff, but I imagine they would.
Okay, I know that's something we normally require when there's a new plat like this coming in, and
I just
pretty
wanted-
dark out there. So
I wanted to make sure that we didn't infer that we were.
your ways may not get you there. You may need the traffic. You may need the street light to see the intersection. Let's see. What's the percentage? I don't mean to put you on the spot, Randy, but what's the percentage of open space versus developed?
I had that number.
The green space. I'm sure you've got it someplace
Yeah, give me one
because you
second.
knew one of us was gonna ask you.
23%
Okay.
open space.
Okay.
And then the single-family portion takes up 63%, but there is that 45% requirement, but
Sure.
that's only the backyards that people count into the open space calculation.
Right.
So the about 11.4 acres is open space that's HOA open space.
Right, where the ponds and so
Right,
forth are.
and the
I know we, and for the folks that live just to the north in Terra, we went through exactly this same situation in the plat where I live, where Cedar Brook Farms was developed just to the south of us. And one of the things that I have discovered and that we in the existing plat have discovered is we shortcut through the new plat to get out onto Shakertown Road so we can make a left turn onto Fairfield, because my record so far is 46 cars going by before I could turn out onto Fairfield Road. And the folks in our plat were concerned that that the folks in the new plat were going to be shortcutting through our plat, and it's turned out it's the other way around. So y'all will be able to get to Alpha Bellbrook Road a whole lot easier than you could going through your existing plat. But that was our situation. We don't have sidewalks or curbs either, and the new plat does. And so far as I know, nobody's been hit yet. And we got a lot of walkers in our plat. One question, Randy, and then I'll pick on the developer. It appears that lot number 108, there's that 25-foot buffer space for everything but that one lot. It's the one on the north side of, looks like Deb's Drive.
Yeah,
Is that just an error in coloring?
no, it was because there's a house that butts right there. You could that's right where that barn is on the existing aerial photo.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing to preserve on that.
Oh, okay. And I know from, and you'll have to help me out, but there's a plat that is off of County Line Road that we went through this green space versus conservation area, and the homeowners association and all the folks along that property line wanted it taken out of conservation because it was turning into a jungle, and they couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to even remove dead trees in
Right.
a conservation easement.
Do you
it became-
recall? You remember?
It's on
the-
Long Meadow.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the one.
Okay, I went out there and looked at a lot of dead trees, and I said, I mean, technically you can't remove them.
So yeah, there's a reason for that, and I think that's why the green space was developed versus conservation. I would be perfectly happy, gentlemen, if somebody put in the conditions that no structures could be put in that 25-foot space. It's more of a green space if there's not a shed back there, or, for that matter, a fence. Since I can't do that, y'all can. Okay, I think that's all I've got for you. If Mr. Ober, I've got a few questions for you too, please.
Mr. Self, that street light at the intersection would be a good substitute 20th condition.
Don't press your luck.
Okay.
It can also be number 21. You had originally talked about not a mix of empty nester and larger houses on the same street, and that would make it really difficult for you to do the outside maintenance as if it were a condo. It's not a condo, but
Right,
it would be an HOA maintained exterior.
That's correct. We do these quite often where there's a homeowners association that has the function of not only maintaining the green space and the common areas, but also the landscape responsibilities for each individual lot, the snow
Right.
removal, et cetera.
Right, and I understand that would be between difficult and impossible to have it mixed.
It would be. I think in a development like this, you either have to do it all or not.
Right, okay. Trying to read my notes here. The typical, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but the typical prices of the patio homes that you're referring to, once this plat once you get it underway with it, presuming there's no more inflation on both labor and construction materials, ballpark idea of what from small to large?
I think, just based on the data that I showed you with the two developments in the Centerville and Washington Township area, I think we would see in the proposed development, in today's dollars, and keep in mind, you know, we're probably not, we're talking about selling homes a year from now.
Sure. Understood.
So in today's dollars, I think you would see a minimum, based on the square footage that I'm proposing, in the $350,000 range. And we have patio homes today in the development in Washington, Trace, for an example, Reader's Grove, that are going up to over $600,000.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
We
But-
offer flexibility with these
Sure.
plans, so even though we have standard plans, we, depending on the lot and depending on the house plan, some of them could offer a 3-car garage, for instance, if it's on a corner lot. Some of them could, or a wider lot, as there are up against the adjoining neighborhoods. But Florida rooms are a pretty typical option.
Understood. The drawings and the renditions of the houses that came in our packet, the smallest in there is like 1,460 square feet.
Right.
So we don't have any sketches or elevations of the smaller houses that you're proposing.
They're basically the same architecture that
Okay,
you're
but
seeing.
they're all
on
one
of
story.
the other, yeah, they're one story. The same architect designed all of them, so very similar.
But that does kind of fly in the face of one of the requirements in there, that you not have the same house next door to each other across the street, and
We
kind of a
believe-
mixture of 1-story and 2-story. That's going to be kind of hard to do if you do it all patio homes.
Well, we still maintain the standard of not allowing the same plan next to each other. Even we actually, when we do these kinds of developments, we go through and actually predetermined color schemes on them. So we offer a variety of colors.
Sure, understood.
But if you want the green one with the brown brick, you got to choose one of these lots.
But that kind of flies in the face of one of the restrictions in there about mixing single-story and 2-story. So,
Actually, the condition, it just said same style,
okay,
not necessarily called out single versus multi-story.
okay.
Let's find it. It's just number 17, where it just says the same home layout or color scheme on a house. So it doesn't necessarily mean.
Okay,
mean-
I must have misread it. I'm sorry. Okay, I think that's all I've got for you right now. Okay, yeah. Second helpings. Go right ahead.
Can we go back to the chart that shows the 2 other developments? If you wouldn't mind just explaining again, I know, I apologize, you've already
It's okay.
explained it, the 1,200-foot stipulation that you want to add in replacement of the 1,600 square foot minimum square footage. Can you just explain that a little bit more? 'Cause I'm looking at the average square feet of each of these, and they're above the 1,600 that.
That's because what I'm showing you is what has sold,
Yep.
what has been contracted over the last year, not what is offered. Okay, so
Okay.
so what we offer is the 1,262 square foot plan, but we've yet to sell one.
Yep.
So the reason that we offer that is because when I'm marketing, I can say, you know, you can live in Cornerstone from $299,900.
Got it. Yeah.
And they come in and buy the $400,000 house. So that, I mean, seriously, or the $400,000 to $600,000 house. And that's the reason for those charts.
Okay. Thank you.
The same thing is true on the other development. It doesn't offer the 1,260 square foot house. It's not that we wouldn't want to offer it down there. It's that we only have, we're in the final section of that, and I would have to go back through a zoning modification to do it, and I just chose with 27 lots remaining not to do that.
Okay. So it's really primarily an economical decision to request a minimum square footage of 1,200.
Yeah, what we
rather-
found in our market studies are that the empty nester audience, if you will, if they could have their wish list, it would be to sell the McMansion and downsize and only spend 75% of what they sold the McMansion for. So we actually do that research and go through a format, and 299.9 was the target. So when we missed the target with the 14 or the larger house, I think it was 1,700 square foot house, we had to retool and come back with a smaller house to hit that target. But even though we hit the target, nobody bought the target. So that's kind of what I want to do here.
Okay. Thank you.
It's kind of like the car dealer that has the car with no options on it and nobody buys it.
Oh, you know, please don't insult the developer as a car dealer. Some of my best friends are car dealers.
Some of my best friends are developers. Okay, gentlemen, second helpings here.
I've got a couple of questions
Okay?
for staff. So I saw in, I'm not going to be able to find it now. One of the conditions requires a bond that requires landscaping to be completed before the bond's released. Is that, it didn't say any specific language about cleanup of construction debris. Is that included in that release of the bond?
I mean, there'll be a separate street sweeping bond that we require, and the engineering department requires that so that they're not dragging mud all over the.
Do we need to
street.
condition that?
No, that's standard practice for us.
Okay.
Um,
Is there anything that prevents us from adding the 25-foot grading and green space buffer that is on the north side of property to the west and the south side as well?
I mean,
Correct. Well, it's not required to be in there, right? I don't think we're, but is there anything that prohibits us from doing it?
I just think from the reason that we didn't ask them to put it in is because it's A1 on west and south, and we typically wouldn't screen.
But is there anything that prohibits us?
No.
Okay.
Would the
Oh,
sorry.
you're good, man. Go ahead.
Would the existing tree line on the south side of this development would that remain in place? That might be a question for Mr. Ober, but
I guess it would, yeah, that would be a question for him, and I'm not sure. Some of it's on the neighboring property, it looks like, from just the aerial, I don't
Yeah.
know, but, so, yeah, that's between.
okay. We can finish with staff and then.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
ask her.
Randy, I got no more questions for you. For Mr. Ober, I know you made a comment about why don't the homeowners put a buffer zone in their property? That's kind of like moving to an airport and complaining about the noise. So if you are new to the neighborhood, I don't know that we can, so we can require existing homeowners. So
But those existing tree lines, even the smaller trees and the scrub trees and the screening actually will help us market those lots. We will purposely try to save those tree lines, even if they're not great tree lines.
So if those trees, those little green spaces help you market the lots, why wouldn't you put in a landscaping plan with screening?
Well, because there's extensive, I guess, borders to this plan, and my costs for selling lots, and we sell lots sometimes to other builders, sometimes to our own home building company. So from pre-COVID to today, costs have gone from about $1,000 a front foot of street frontage to over $1,500. So, if I could afford it and it would, you could still keep the homes affordable, I would add a lot more landscaping, but we try to landscape the critical areas. You can't possibly afford to put, a pine tree perimeter around the development, for an example. It just is cost prohibitive.
Yeah, I understand that, but we've seen a lot of landscaping plans that aren't fortified with pine trees that don't bankrupt companies. So, Would you have any opposition to extending the 25-foot grading and green space buffer to the entire perimeter of the property? I mean, because you just said, the existing trees are going to help you market the properties, right? So all I'm asking is, where this gentleman, I think Mr. Ricky, has his farm, and on the south side and the west side, where there's a ton of trees already, can we keep them? Would you commit to keeping those?
We're going to try to save those trees anyway. I mean, the existing tree lines. When you talk about adding buffers, the lot depths are all calculated based, taking the right of way into consideration and taking whatever buffers are into consideration, or no build setbacks, for an example. I guess if I could answer that by saying I could take a look at it, and if it doesn't cost us density, I think we would be open to that.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but the buffer it's not an easement that is going to the HOA. That buffer stays on the property of the homeowner when they buy the lot. It's still factored into their square footage of the lot size, correct?
Yeah, the 25, part of the easement on the north side is there's a requirement that those properties be 20,000 square feet, and part of that 20,000 square feet is within the green space easement. The challenge is just going to be the grading, and because of the way the water flows to the south, to try to save everything on the south, you might not be able to grade it so you can keep the water from flowing to the south, where you can keep it on site. But that's more of an engineering concern rather than a buffering concern or a screening concern.
So there's a topography map here, right?
Yeah, they have a grading plan, and you can see just to the west of open space D, it's the green space on the south side. Just to the west of that, there's a pretty good amount of grading that's going to be required. And then if you go, that's on page 2 of 3, and then if you go on page 3 of 3, that continues to the pipeline. And then there's a small swale on the back of that whole thing, and that's to get the water from running to the property to the south. It runs east-west rather than north-south at that point.
Thank you.
Not so fast, Mr. Ober. I got one more question for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's one, Mr. Ober. There's one that I missed in my list here, and this is having to do with the trees that you're going to plant. And I really have no problem with you citing the trees at a good location. But some of these 60-foot wide lots, when you get a 16-foot wide driveway and a 60-foot wide lot, and you put a couple of trees in that front yard, in 10 or 15 years, that's going to be a crowded front yard. So, as far as I'm concerned, put the trees where you wish, but I wouldn't want to require 2 trees in the front yard, because I think some of these lots are just too narrow.
Well,
Your
to that
call.
point, in the other developments that I've talked about, we only put 1 tree in the front yard. This was a staff request
Okay.
to put the 2 trees on each lot, one in the front and one in the back. And we proposed a compromise that if we had to put 2 trees, could we put them in the front? I mean,
I just think that gets a little, we'll discuss that, but I think that just gets a little crowded. Not now, but you look at a plat that was built 15 or 20 years ago, and if there are 2 trees in the front yard on these narrow lots, that gets very crowded very quickly. Staff, just one more question for you. I'm sorry. I know adjacent lots to existing R1A need to be half acre, and the ones that are on here are close. So you don't have any trouble with a .47 or a
I looked at them all, and every one of them are, but they at least have to be 20,000 square feet.
Okay, they're all, okay, I didn't see the square footage.
Yeah,
If it's there, I can't read it, it's way too small.
Yeah, it has to match the R1A minimum.
Sure,
And that's
understood.
20,000
But
square.
they all hit that 20,000
I
square foot mark.
recalculated them all.
Okay, good, thank you. Gentlemen, since I can't make motions, I would have a couple of small suggestions. One is to make the changes to the trees. The second one is, in that 25-foot easement, no structures would be allowed. And the third one is, along the south property line, even though that's R1A and it doesn't, we don't need, or don't, there is no requirement for any kind of a green space or a setback. In fact, there isn't between R1A and RPUD. Just simply have something in there that says, within 25 feet of the lot line, keep trees larger than 3-inch caliper or 4-inch caliper. And that gives the developer the flexibility to get rid of the weeds and the weed trees and the poison ivy and leave trees of any consequence along there. So those are my suggestions, gentlemen, but since I can't make motions or add conditions. Oh, and we need to add a condition for a street light, not a traffic light, a street light at the intersection between Breeders' Way and Alpha Bellbrook Road. Because I didn't see one in there, and it should probably just be added to the condition about putting in the turn lanes. So with that, I will shut up, and I will ask for, first of all, if you want to add conditions, we'll need to do that and vote on them, or change conditions, and then we will vote on the whole thing as amended.
So, Mr. Chair, first, I would make a motion to amend condition 7 concerning the trees.
Okay?
To give the developer discretion on where the 2 trees would be. I agree with you. There might be an issue with.
Do you want one tree or
overcrowding.
2?
I like the idea of 2 trees. I like trees. I think the more we can get, the better.
Who doesn't like
But I would like to
trees?
give the developer some discretion on
Okay.
where they would go. So I would
All right.
remove the language dealing with one on the front lot and one on the
Okay.
back lot.
Okay?
Sorry.
Need a second on that.
I second that.
Okay, you wanna tell us what he said?
Do you want to follow that? A second tree shall be planted outside of the 25-foot no grading limit. So,
That
That
means
looks
he can
great.
put it wherever he wants. Okay. Okay, so we need to vote on that. We'll just do it quickly. All in favor, aye? Aye. Passes 4-0. Okay, next.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make another amendment, or propose it to condition 12. And I know someone had stated that along the south side, keeping trees in 3 inches in diameter or larger. But I would probably take it a step further and request that a 25-foot green space and no grade buffer would be along the entire perimeter of the north, south, and west side of the property.
What's the west side right now? It looks like it's woods.
it is woods.
Mr. Chair, additional to that, the restriction on structures in that 25-foot.
It's already there. Great.
Oh, yep.
It says no accessory buildings or structures except fences shall be permitted within the area so designated on the record plan. And they're referring to that 25-foot area. So basically what you're saying is you want to extend that 25-foot area all the way around, at least on the 3 sides, not on Alpha Bellbrook.
Correct, on everything except for the east side that abuts Alpha Bellbrook.
Okay. Okay, we've got a change to that.
Second that.
Have a second.
Our engineer's got to.
All right. Time out for the engineer.
You tell me there's a grading issue, isn't there?
Yes, it's a grading issue.
Okay.
So, looking through these topography plans just quickly, the one thing I did notice on the south side is that the proposed grading is going to be going up very close to that south limit, basically from Thoroughbred Court west. Get my bearings straight here. Through basically open space A. Then, as I think was stated earlier, between open space A and Triple Crown Court, there is also a swale that's being graded back in there along that south edge. That swale shown on page 3 of 3, and that other, the other grading that I spoke of just a second ago was on page 2 and 3. So I just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention with that request, so.
So would that inhibit our ability to put a no grade zone on the south side of the property?
Potentially, yes. On the south side, yes. That's my concern with it, because with the topography that they're showing for the grading and some of those slopes, with how they're going to have to move dirt around, it's either going to impact trees with just filling on top of those root systems where the trees will die, or, and we've seen that happen before, and that's why we take them out, or just grading, just excavating around them and stuff too is going to make it so it's hard to grade. We're going to have lots of slopes going up and down like that. So that's my concern with it, just with that open grading. So
Basically, that stretch along there.
that stretch, it's yeah. So basically, from we'll say open space D to open space E, that's that topography that's being. I'm sorry. Yeah, open space C. Yeah, excuse me, open space C, and then back over on page 3 to open space E, which is where that pipeline goes through. And then from open space E to Triple Crown Court, it does look, like I said before, that there'll be a swale that's installed with that grading that they're going to be doing back on those lots.
So essentially, what you're saying is that through most of that southern side, it won't be disturbing anything on the adjacent landowner's property, but
No, but it would be on this property, correct?
and there's no ghost chance of preserving anything.
My concern is that if this is in here, it's going to affect the grading,
Right.
and there'd be very little chance of preserving those trees
Okay.
because of the grading.
Okay,
so.
if we were to say that without impinging on the grading plan to save what can be saved.
I don't think that's an issue. I'd like to save the trees as much as possible.
Sure,
as well.
understood.
So yeah, as long as we're not infringing on that.
Right, well, and we certainly don't want excessive runoff
No,
to the neighboring
correct,
property.
yeah.
That's a no-no,
Yeah.
as we all know.
Yeah. So that was my concern. So.
All right, gentlemen, you heard the expert.
I would like to change my amendment. Josh, are we good?
I can't recall at this point what the status of the last motion to amend was. Did it get a
It was
second?
seconded.
Yeah, but you'll withdraw your second, won't you?
I will withdraw my second.
You could even withdraw your motion.
I would withdraw my motion
Okay.
and make a new one, pending staff's comment.
Oh, I was just here to take notes of what you guys are saying so I can
Well,
keep
thank you
up.
very much. In the spirit of saving neighbor privacy and as much green and trees as we can, I would make the motion that as long as it does not inhibit the grading plans, that any trees
It can be saved. will
that
be
can be
saved.
saved would be saved that are at least 3 inches in 4 inches in diameter, 3 inches in diameter
On the south and east
on the
side.
south and on the west side, right? And that would still give them the ability to cut out poison ivy and the rest of the invasive.
Hopefully that's
non-native.
not 3-inch caliper
Oh,
poison
boy,
ivy.
I hope not. What?
The
On
north's
the
already
north,
taken care of.
it's already on the north. And that's, the north has the no grading zone as well, which is additional. Yep.
And also, just to make sure y'all know that it already says no structures can be built except fences. That's the only thing. So that will be, it wouldn't be green space with a shed on it now, would it? Okay, I've got an amendment to, which one is it?
Condition 12.
Condition 12.
I second that
And I've
amendment
got a
to
second.
condition 12.
Gentlemen,
Aye.
all 4 ayes. So we fixed number 12. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I think the last one would be adding the street light, not a traffic light, a street light at the corner of Breeders' Way and Alpha Bell. And that would go on condition, we wouldn't add a new condition, right? We wouldn't add 30. It would go on the turn lane, which is, staff, do you know which one that is?
Find it.
26? No.
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 I would say just add condition number 30.
We can do that. So add condition 30 to add a street light at the corner of Breeders' Way and Alpha Bell.
So the turn lanes are a given. They don't need to be conditioned?
It's a county road, and it's really up to the county what they do. And
Okay.
the county's already got that traffic recommendation.
Okay. Okay, so we don't need to put that in as a condition. So we'll just make,
I already have the boilerplate condition
Okay.
that the concerns of the county.
okay.
The,
Now, there's one other thing. There's one more we need to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Second or
I'm
vote on
sorry.
that.
I've got a motion.
I second the amendment to add.
Our reliable second here. That would be number 30. Mhm. And gentlemen, all in favor? 4-0. Okay, we've got that. So we are down to number 20. And I think that should be PRINCIPAL, principal. I was never an English teacher, but do we want to change that, gentlemen? My suggestion on that, since I can't do it, is split the difference with our developer. He wants 1,200. They have 1,400 square foot units. If they decide to go with the patio homes, they've got a 1,400 square foot unit. He says he never sells the 1,200 foot ones, and that would give him the flexibility of several different models. But that's just a suggestion on my part. So what that would do would be to change number 20, the 20A minimum of 1,400 square feet instead of 16, and leave the two-story, since if he goes with if y'all end up going with a non-patio home development, that wouldn't make any difference because you say all the patio homes are one story.
Mr. Chair, I would motion to approve PUD 23-2 SSP number 1 with the 2 approved conditions, amended conditions. Well, the 30 conditions, but sorry, yeah, the 30 conditions
As
with
amended.
as amended. Yep.
I would second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Anything else for the good of the order, gentlemen, before we vote? Okay, read the roll this time.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Self?
Yes. Motion carries 4-0, and we will be looking forward to your new development. Gentlemen, we are fresh out of agenda, so I'd ask for a motion to adjourn,
Mr.
unless you have something else to add.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to add. I would motion to adjourn the October Planning Commission meeting.
I second that motion.
And we are. Thank you very much.